I mean, public education just seems like it's set up to make you like a decent consumer type person,
Yeah, I agree.
ready to consume products. Hold on, I have a text. I have to see what's going on here.
All
It's
right.
buzzing. A lot of buzzing going on. Oh, no, it's not important. I'm back.
Important enough to check.
But Lorena was teaching substitute teaching over the winter at the school, and she taught a
Heard
lot of
about
younger
that.
grades. And when they run into a kid that's not very good, or they have like attention deficit disorder, they call it. Basically, the kid has a bad home life.
Flush them.
They just recommend that they be, yeah, they put them on drugs, and the little kids come back like all doped up, and they're like, well, she's a lot different now. And she said these kids were like zombified. That's what we do in
Jesus.
America. It's a shitty, terrible curriculum. The kids have terrible parents and they're bored. So they shove them full of pills and they come back like, duh. And then they say, why aren't you doing good at your work?
Aren't you studying better?
They don't care about the kids at all. The
Have
kid
you-
could have, that kid could be the next Bill Gates or somebody, but they're too busy. They're drugged out of their brains.
Have you ever seen the top viewed TED Talk? It's by that. He's in education. He's an educator, and I guess he's responsible for helping schools try to improve education. And he's very funny. You should watch his TED Talk. But he gave the example of a little girl who was having issues in class learning, and her mother brought her to the principal because of her poor performance, and her teachers were complaining that she was always fidgeting and jumping up and running around and not doing what she was supposed to do. And so she came with her mother to the school, to the principal, and the principal was talking with their mother in the office. And then the principal stood up and said, come with me. And they looked out the window at the girl who didn't know that they were watching them. And they looked out of the window, and she was dancing. And then the principal turned to the mother and said, your daughter doesn't have any problems with school. She's just a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, she became a famous choreographer because she was encouraged. So what we should be doing, obviously, is figuring out, okay, wow, you have these talents. Let's tap you in this direction and encourage you this way.
So, I mean, these things are so obvious. Like any moron that was in charge of anything in public education could realize that probably 100 years ago. But they don't care
Right.
about that.
Yeah.
They want to regiment you into like it's a very thin slice of a thing.
Well,
and if
and
you don't
when-
meet that,
yeah,
think about how many
exactly.
gauntlets you have to get through to be a
normal shithead. Yeah.
decent, happy, successful person in life. Okay, well, you weren't born autistic, but you don't like your classes, so we're gonna have to drug you back to autism now.
You're not sitting still enough. Hold your mouth open while we
Right.
funnel these into your mouth hole.
They feed him like absolute trash, like French fries.
pills.
They expose him to and then they send him off to college and expose him to just a bunch of sex and drugs and like anti-free speech propaganda, and then they have to join the workplace where they pay out the rest of their lives in slavery.
And this, you're quoting an Alan Watts video, basically beat for beat. It's sort of like everything is a come here, kitty,
Mm-hmm.
Everything is that, and then you reach the end of your life and it's over, and you realize that you
Like
screwed up.
being a human being in the modern world is like
shit.
it's a dehumanization.
Right.
It's a reducing down to a non.
So the people who can realize that, though, and sort of unplug early and figure out, wait a second, how am I supposed to actually interact in the world? How can I behave independently and not be a weirdo dwelling in the forest, and sort of operate on both levels? I'm aware of the nonsense. At the same time, I'm able to stay in the world and not completely dissociate.
That's very tough. Yeah, I almost think that you just got to be the weirdo in the forest. I don't know.
No, because I think that there are a lot of people who achieve that status, the people who do unplug from status quo and are able to use the status quo as their sort of engines of growth or success. I mean, people who you certainly can.
You can.
PewDiePie.
It's very rare. Yeah. Well, yeah. PewDiePie, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates. I mean, that's not a lot of
I don't
people.
know about Bill Gates, but definitely Elon Musk for sure.
Yeah.
And
But that's not a lot of people. I mean, that's
right.
like
But it means it's doable.
not really. You'd have to be really special to do that. I mean, you could do that, but you'd have to do it in your own way. Like, I was watching some running videos on YouTube today. Actually, this is a lady that was on Joe Rogan like a year ago. I'd never seen it before, but It's a woman that she beat all the men in this extreme long distance run. I think it was a 240-mile run
Mm-hmm.
that she did in 60 hours or something. And the second best person was a man who was 10 hours behind her. She just like passed through
Jesus
some
Christ.
sort of passed through some kind of pain threshold. And like, I mean, I just tried to run 4 miles today, and it was like the hardest thing in my life because I'm out of shape. But she ran 240 miles. So I mean, that's basically to the type of person she found her Elon Musk status. Like that's where hers was running this extreme distance. Nobody is as good at that in the world as she is.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be Elon Musk, but everybody's probably set up to be the most extreme version of themselves, and there's all these obstacles in the way they have to
Right.
figure out.
Well, that's where it comes down to becoming self-aware and realizing that I think there are a couple of critical realizations that you have to have as you develop that the purpose of education is not to shape who you are, but to give you knowledge, and that the person you become is ultimately up to you, and you have to be sort of know what you care about, and know what's not important to you, and know what maybe you think you care about because society tells you care about that, but actually you realize you don't care about that thing.
I guess it's probably some people say you have to find yourself, other people say you have to create yourself.
Yeah, I think it's
probably a 50-50.
I don't know which one it is, but I don't know which one it is, but that's why I like listening to people like Alan Watts and Terence McKenna, because they are not necessarily fully realized people, but they are able to get across ideas that are outside of the mundane plane, right? And I think maybe McKenna more than Watts, because his is sort of drug fueled, and he just goes crazy with. I mean, his ideas are insane, but it's good to listen to them even though they're insane, because it makes you realize that someone can find purpose and meaning in something that's so far from the norm, and still operate in society and still be respected by others. People respect his books, kind of, and he's still considered in some ways an influential individual, even though his ideas were, by normal standards, absolutely nuts. Have you ever looked into his time wave theory?
I don't think so. No.
It's so nuts that you can't.
Tell.
It's sort of like conspiracy level crazy, but it was the main focus of his entire life. So he was having a conversation with the mushroom people and his mushroom guide, and they told him that the I Ching was the secret to understanding sort of the universe. I'm maybe not presenting this very well, but sort of that was the core, the key. The I Ching represents, if you've ever seen the Korean flag, there's this set of 64 symbols, and you see these lines, and they're different combinations, all the different possible combinations of these groups of lines. And then he realized that this was somehow the key to understanding all of time and how the universe actually works. So he built a computer program to decode what these 64 symbols in the I Ching were trying to tell him. And basically it led him to the idea that the universe is somehow moving toward something, toward a specific point, which he called a concrescence. A concrescence is sort of this black hole of existence, where everything is being sucked toward it, and time is actually increasing in speed over I guess it's hard to say over time, but it's increasing in speed and novelty. So at the beginning of the universe, everything was sort of moving very slowly, and planets very slowly, and then life, but in the last 150 years, it's trains and cars and computers. Everything is increasing at an insane degree. And so he has this idea that there's this deep thing in the universe that governs how things happen, and it's a pattern called the time wave. And it's somehow part of the fabric of existence. And every time he travels into the DMT realm or the mushroom realm, he learns more about it. and we're moving toward this thing, and that throughout history there are these sort of spikes in this wave, this time wave, that correspond to other spikes, and I don't understand it all, but
Sounds good to me. I'm
check
for
out
that.
Time Wave Theory, Terence McKenna, and it just, the reason I mention it is because I don't think it's necessarily important that it's true. I think it's just great to know that there's a person who can find total obsession and purpose and focus and joy in an idea that's not respected by anyone else, by most people, but still there's an audience for it, people who come to listen to him, and he can write books about it, and he can still do what he does, and that there's a way to live not in a cave, but around others in society as a person like that.
Yeah,
Does that make
there's
sense?
an increasing audience. Yeah, that makes sense. I agree that's inspiring. I would say like the recognition and being able to live in society, that's kind of the cherry on top. The most important part would be like figuring out, are you Elon Musk or the 240-mile lady? Like there's something that you've got that you could probably do better than anybody else. Figure out what that is, and you probably get the most satisfaction out of that.
How do you do? How do you find that though? What is
I don't know. You got to figure out how to listen, like Terence McKenna, or you got to go on a vision quest. First you'd have to want to know that, right?
Right. You have to know that that's a thing that you can know.
Right. Yeah. But once you do, then you have like a path in front of you to at least look for. You might not be able to see the path. It might look like all wilderness, but you could keep looking until you get an indication of a direction.